everybody. Jackie's going to introduce our first storyteller. Welcome. And this is how to build a fire. And this is great. We are fully remote, but still lively. So hopefully we can remain so. During the storytelling, we will mute you all, except for the storyteller, just to keep things tame. And then afterwards, I'll try to unmute everybody. So don't say anything silly. No, say things silly, but just don't say anything you don't want people to hear. That's about it. Jackie is going to introduce our first storyteller.
Okay. Welcome to How to Build a Fire. I wanted to know where everyone was tonight. Monica, you're in. Oh, Monica. Oh my God. Lily, Monica.
Jackie froze.
Oh, Jackie froze. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting some messages, so I'm going to see. I've got son-in-laws in the other room. I'm going to get their attention. But so I am in Somerville, South Carolina.
Uh-oh.
Shariff put in the chat that he is in the Bronx. We're always happy to say that. That's my usual spot. Anyone else joining us from somewhere different? Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn. Yay.
Oh, Jackie, you're freezing again.
All right. We are happy to be together tonight. I hope Raleigh, North Carolina, I hope that everyone is having a lovely holiday. And we're going to go right into it and get started with our first storyteller. So just going to read your bio. Shariff Rodriguez, of a career in law. Shortly thereafter, he realized that the pursuit was more of a path of suggestion than one of desire. After studying psychology at SUNY New Paltz, Shariff moved into both the traditional and digital marketing sector, with business development. Giselle couldn't be with us tonight. He's going to tell you why. And then I'll go skip down and tell you about the lovely couple. They were going to be our first couple. Don't worry, we'll do that before the year's out. While working within their career or lifestyle, they aspire to use their story to impact all walks of life and help guide others to develop a successful business. Their love story began as high school classmates, and they recently celebrated their 4th wedding anniversary. They take their roles as doting aunt and cool uncle as a blessing and responsibility. They travel, hike, and perform other sports activities, mentors to other aspiring young entrepreneurs. And I'll just add in that I put in the rest of that bio because this is my nephew and time. So take it away, Shariff.
All right.
I'm going to spotlight Shariff, everybody. So hang in there. Okay.
All right. While you spotlight, can I tell you that I have only seen Shariff.
The anticipation's building up.
I know.
His apartment through Zoom because he lives on top of the building. 5 years later, I'm waiting for him to move. But go ahead, Shariff.
Yeah, no problem. And then what she was saying is that this is one of her first times seeing the inside of my apartment because I have a 5-story flight up, and that usually deters many people from knocking on my door. That even includes Jehovah's Witness and other solicitors. But anyway, my name is Shariff Rodriguez. Jackie, thank you so much. I think it's really a great privilege to be here with you guys this evening. And hopefully within my 15 minutes, I can kind of just give you a quick snippet of, I guess, my story and my life and everything like that. But first off, if you guys don't have a drink or anything like that, but here, Happy New Year to everybody here. This has been a very interesting year, I think, for everybody, no matter what your generation is. This is something that's very first for everybody. So hopefully everyone's family is safe. And hopefully, and I like to say, and it's going to kind of incorporate my story, I think this is going to be a great year coming up. This is going to be the best year for each one of us in our lives, because I'm a huge person that really really focuses on the power of the spoken word, and whatever you speak into your life and whatever you claim, it's there for you to take. So real quick about myself, I am born here in New York City. I live in the Bronx, New York right now. And yeah, like my aunt was saying, I met my wife, Giselle, which she definitely wanted to be here. Matter of fact, she actually is home. She's in the other room. So we actually run a business as well. So it just so happened that the timing kind of coincided and collided with each other. We thought that we were going to have a meeting on Friday, but it got moved to here because of New Year's and people want to, chill out on New Year's. So it's okay. So she sends her love and her best, which is me. So pretty much we met in high school, and we have a very interesting story that kind of, again, it goes in terms of our whole topic and everything like that, where, we're talking about like, let's not give up. Let's not give up hope. If I gave up hope back in high school and me pursuing her, my whole life would be different. That's a fact. She was dating other people when I found interest in her. I found my ways to sabotage those very minutely and silently, because I think if you really want something, you go for it. And, we started dating at the end of high school. We kind of imagined a life together in the sense where we wanted to first focus on our careers. So she went to first Lehman College here, and then she moved over to SUNY Purchase. She's a dancer. She didn't study in the dance consortium over there, but she also loved or found her interest in working with children. So she did early childhood psychology, which today she actually is a teacher. So she works with the range from 6 to 18-month-old kids. So she's been doing that for the last, I believe, 9 years as of right now. We're both 30 years old. She's 30, I'm 31. And for myself, I guess like many people or many human beings, we kind of navigate through life hoping that we can find our passion and hoping we can find, what is it we're here on this planet for? I would say that I was kind of stumbling along. Like my aunt said beforehand, I first studied criminal justice, studied to be a lawyer, mainly because it was suggested to me. People said, hey, Sharif, you're really good at arguments. You should do that. And I said, hey, I think they make good money. However, me going into a month-long murder case for my jury duty a few years back, which ruined my whole summer. But anyway, I realized, wow, this is exciting, to be in a courtroom, but I don't think this is too exciting for where I want to do this for the rest of my life. So I was very much open to, making sure that I can do what I had to do to broaden my horizons, meet new people. So I transferred upstate to SUNY New Paltz, and it was a great school because one that loved their psych program. I talked to some professors, said, hey, great. I also had some friends that were up there. So when I would visit, it was a great party school. On Jackie, now you know. One of the reasons I went up there is I have a good time too. But I would also say me doing that, I was also throwing myself into a field or a world that I wasn't really truly prepared for. So for me, and I'll be honest with everyone here, for me going up there, even though beforehand I was always a decent student, I had a 3.4 grade point average before I transferred upstate. But because it was such a culture shock, the fact that I was first time outside of my family's home, first time just like being on my own, doing my own laundry, as a man, that's a challenge sometimes for us. But I think it was also a culture shock where I wasn't actually time managing myself. Some classes I were doing fine, and the other classes I was struggling even to wake up. I don't know why I chose an 8 o'clock class on my first time transferring to a state school outside my house. Before my alarm clock, my mom would wake me up. So I literally was going through like the failure right then and there. I was failing in certain classes. And because of all that, my grade point dropped so low that I had to leave school, and that was so detrimental for me at that point where I was just like, what the heck is going to happen? So I came back down to the city, and I wanted to, again, go back into school. I happened to go to school, which was in Westchester. I didn't have a car. I was going to classes with a friend, and my grades started picking back up. I was getting back on the ball, going back into psychology, and that's what I was studying before. And then out of nowhere, again, it's sometimes where you even put all your eggs in the basket of someone else. And then he decided, you know what, he doesn't want to go to school that year. And he told me the day right before classes started. So I was just thinking like, wow, what the heck is going to happen? So I was going through a lot of different negatives and a lot of different trials and tribulations. I think we can all attribute that to what's happening this year. Everyone has their own hardships. But long story short, I was able to pick myself back up. I got into the field of marketing. First, I started off working with the smaller companies, then digital companies. And as of right now, which is a great blessing, you know, during this year is actually like the best position. I actually got a new promotion, a new job during this whole pandemic and everything like that, which is crazy. But, you know, during everything prior to that and prior to my wife and I, we actually were able to, fortunate enough, meet a couple that helped and guide us in business, because we're in business as well. But because of all of these things, you know, we were sucking in life a lot, you know, where you have kids in our age or in our generation where you have either you're lost or you're in a corporate job or some kind of profession where it's like, it's not fulfilling. So for myself is that I was strong enough, and I guess I can, you know, thank my parents and everything like that for raising me in a certain way, where I always told myself that I'm going to choose the hard way. I don't want an easy way. For anyone who chooses the easy way, it's like in comparison to a story. You know, an easy story is something you can tell to a child and he goes to bed very fast. And that's why sometimes you have one-hit wonders, because you have some people who didn't go through the hard trials and tribulations of life. But I wanted to have a hard, challenging life. And I told myself at a young age, because I want to be someone that I can inspire someone else. When I was a younger kid, I was looking at actors and actresses and then their awards and you know, listening to them. I felt inspired because I wanted to move people that way. So I wanted to have not just a short story, but I wanted to have almost a novel. I wanted to have, and to continue that novel through going through life and everything of that nature. So if we're talking about, you know, let's not give up hope. Let's talk about this year, you know, real quick. For this year, we have, I think, you can talk on any topic, whether it's like political, whether you're talking about the whole coronavirus, this whole world has gone upside down. And, you know, the only thing that we can do right now is, one, keep ourselves safe. But two, I think that we have to really, not more than ever, really just build our confidence. And we have to really just make sure that we can protect ourselves and the people that we're around with. And I'll start with saying a couple of things. That one thing that I would say is that throughout my whole story, which is very, you know, short in my life so far, but ultimately, you know, one thing I learned is making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people who are part of your tribe, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who speak your language, right? I don't like to surround myself with people who talk negatively. I don't like to, you know, be around people who would make me feel like a victim, no matter what the case may be. Because like I said beforehand, whatever you speak is shall you get. We all live at the level that we speak. So that's one thing where beforehand, you know, I was struggling learning how to even just build the simple of habits, you know, prior to 2020. But in the beginning of 2020, and my wife and I, we've been in business for the last like 8 years. And prior to that, we were not doing, you know, as well as we wanted to, you know, we didn't quit. And you can look at so many people, and I would hear so many stories, and you can choose anyone, Oprah Winfrey.
Wilson.
Oh, Wilson. Hello. All right. So you could choose anyone successful, and they all have a story. And the common thread that I found is that they don't give up hope, and they don't give up what they're really fighting for. And one thing that my wife and I, we had to do is, first off, we had to kind of paint or put in concrete our why. What is it that we want from this life? And what is it that we want to give back to this life? You have too many people who really want and want a lavish lifestyle, but aren't willing to give back and aren't willing to work hard. And that's one thing that we had to realize earlier on, that in order for us to walk into the life that we have to make sacrifices. Whether those sacrifices were, you know, not going to parties or hanging out when other friends were saying, hey, let's go have a good time. We just made sure that we made the decision to do that for our future and for our life, because again, we had to paint down our why very solidly, cast it in concrete, you know, and on top of that, you know, for us building our confidence, that was a huge factor for ourselves, you know, going through failures in life, you know, struggling to, you know, for me, it was like getting work on time years ago. For my wife, it's just that she had to take a 4-hour train before we had a car, a 4-hour train ride every single morning just to make sure she was at work on time. So with all the things that are happening, you know, in today's world, I think for us, the years prior, it really built us up because I want to make sure that I think I have about 5 minutes left. I want to go over time, but ultimately, this year actually has been the best year for us. You know, we actually are together. This is the year that we've actually made the most income out of all the years we've been together. Together, this is the year in terms of all of our personal goals. They're actually coming to fruition. We've been writing them on our wall right behind my camera. I have Post-its right here. You guys can't see it, but we have in our kitchen, we have pictures of things that we want. And the only thing I could say is that if we gave up on it years ago, if we just said, this is too hard, let's not just do this anymore. Again, that's turning away from the person who is struggling right now, who may or may not need to hear our story one day. And I think that's the same thing for everyone here in this room too. You know, I think that we all have somewhat of a moral obligation to making sure that we can touch someone else's life, because we don't know what ripple effect that really can be. You know, the fact that someone talked to me years ago and gave me an opportunity, and it's changing my life as of today. We can never put a time limit on that. You know, for example, like I look at Morgan Freeman. I don't know what age he actually became a famous actor, but I only remember him, you know, in his older age. So, hey, you know, even for myself, I don't think I have the best years happened yet, you know? So in terms for, you know, this year, I would like to say also is really just don't stop fighting. For myself, I even see like my father, he's 72, just turned 72. And every single day he's finding his passions to do other things in life. And that's also a small motivator for me to be like, wow, like my dad at his age, he's still doing what he wants to do. And he still knows that he can impact people. And then my whole problem is making sure he doesn't say hi to too many people on the street, because then we're having a conversation that takes too long. But other than that, ultimately, you know, within this coming year in 2021, and again, I condensed my story very fast and very shortly, but I think ultimately, and I hope it kind of made sense, where as we walk into this year coming up, no one should say that this is going to be a horrible year. Yes, we're still through a pandemic. Yes, we're trying to figure out Wi-Fi's and Zoom calls and how long we're going to be here in these boxes and that nature. But again, I think we should all make the best of it because, like I said, whatever we speak is what comes into our life. So therefore, if anyone who around me says, hey, I don't know how 2021 is going to be, well, I say, look, hey, listen, it's probably not going to be that good for you because you already said that. But for me, it's going to be great. You know, and for the people around me that I can help bless and pour love into their life, and I can add value to that, I'm going to do that as well. So I would say don't lose hope in this coming year. For myself, if I kind of gave up hope years ago through some failures I had of not succeeding in college, probably would have not got into business, probably have not even married my wife. And you don't know when your time is when you're going to really make a huge impact on someone's life. So this literally is going to be a new experience for everyone here in 2021. This is an unwritten page, you know, in our time and in the time of the universe and everything like that. So if that's the case, you know, why don't we actually make sure that whatever we're etching into it is the best version of ourselves. So therefore people can be inspired. So I think I'm on time. But if anything, it was a great pleasure speaking with you guys. And hopefully, you know, within my youthful wisdom, I said something that poured a little bit of value into everyone here. So thank you so much. And it was really a pleasure and honor, and Happy New Year to everyone here.
Thank you. I'm trying to do this unmute everybody here.
Hey, Lily.
Yes.
Really quickly, last time we said that we are going to try to have like a little like group discussion on the break.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion that everybody come up with a silver lining from 2020, like something really short that they can say that, you know, in this horrible, ridiculous year, that there's got to be some silver lining that came through. What do you think? That
sounds like a good thing. Although I was thinking maybe, sorry. I was thinking that maybe since we have 3, I don't know, are we going to have a break?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe after the next storyteller, we can all come up with our silver lining.
But thank you, Shariff. I guess let me unspotlight you.
Next week will be.
So, just get back here. Close. And I don't know why you're still spotlighted. Okay, there you go. Let me just get gallery view. So, I'd like to invite one of my storytellers. We didn't discuss this because I got on so late. Martha or Nancy. Raise your hand if you have to go right now. If you want to go next. All right, you laughed loudest, so you're gonna go next. Nancy Cross Schimmel is an editor, artist, has done a lot of theater work, and I've known her for a long time. And she is like, you know, that guy from the Dos Equis commercial, the most interesting man in the world. She is probably the most interesting woman in the world. So,
Okay, so nothing to live up to there. I have written my story because if I speak extemporaneously, I'll really go off the charts here. So wait a minute, trying to find my Zoom. Here I am, Zoom. Okay, and so I'm not going to introduce it. It's a story, but it's a true story. All right. I grew up in a Southern California beach town where there were only 2 changes of season: when we turned our clocks forward to daylight savings time and when we turned them back. And so as a reader, I was drawn to books that included young girls, such as myself, riding their bicycles through great piles of crackling autumn leaves, or red-cheeked building snowmen and sledding down gently slopes on a snow day. Of course, the young and the girl parts were the only similarities between myself and these literary characters. Palm trees do not perform this type of leaf shedding or changing of colors. And it wasn't until I was many years out of school that I learned what was even meant by a snow day. So I capitalized on my good fortune to be on the beach for most of the year. And during those other seasons that remained stubbornly summery, I looked to stories with appropriate atmospheric settings. But every night of my childhood, when I said my prayers, I included a plea for Oceanside, California to please have snow. That early deprivation of seasonal fun experienced by the rest of the country was the reason years later in 1984 that I chose October to move to New York from my then home in San Francisco. I wore my thrift store leather jacket over a wool sweater on the plane in anticipation of the crisp, cold temperatures that induced the spectacular fall foliage. By the time I landed, deplaned, and pulled my bags from the luggage carousel, I was peeling off my layers of autumn-ready outerwear with sweaty hands and stepped out into the freak fall weather of about 75 degrees. While I had no first-person contacts in New York, I had names and numbers of friends, as well as contact information for my new soon-to-be roommate, Jeffrey, who I found through the Village Voice back in San Francisco. It might seem a tad risky, given that I would be across a continent from anyone I knew, to move in with a total stranger. But I was determined to get to New York, and so the red flags that were clearly waving wildly went unnoticed. Jeffrey picked me up at JFK in a car he rented for that purpose. Red flag waving. And I vividly remember driving across the Brooklyn Bridge into this utterly spectacular world that is twilight settling over New York City. He insisted on taking me on a tour of the city, thus being responsible for the enduring image in my mind of Fifth Avenue as fairy tale, before pulling up to the apartment at 211 East 35th Street. It was perfect. There were brick walls, black casement windows, brass poles holding up the green awning, a doorman, and everything about it said New York. I had sent my personal belongings ahead of me, so there was just my 2 suitcases to fit into the tiny elevator along with myself and Jeffrey. The one-bedroom apartment on the 6th floor was as good as the building itself, with a sink in the kitchen that stood on legs and was big enough to bathe the calf in, crown moldings, archways, and all those casement windows. The arrangement was that Jeffrey would take the sleeper couch in the living room and I had the bedroom. When I walked into my room, the first thing I did was open the windows and lean my head out. And when I turned my head to the right, I saw with a clear, unobstructed view the top of the Empire State Building. It was such a fantastical sight, like having Jesus pull up next to you in a diner. It took me several minutes before I could drag myself back into my immediate surroundings. And that's when I noticed that where there should have been boxes of what I had previously sent, there was a dresser with my toiletries arranged on top, and a closet with my personal and private belongings inside, and all my things neatly put away. Red flags a-waving. Jeffrey, you shouldn't have. He smiled. No, I mean, you shouldn't have touched my things. No more smiling. And that is how I spent my first night in New York. As days went on, I was consumed with looking for a job and, in the back of my mind, another place to live. My relationship with Jeffrey steered in a courteous, if cautious, direction. At times, we even had normal, pleasant conversations in the Eden kitchen overlooking an air shaft. He was a computer whiz, and this was the 80s, before computer whizzes popped out of the womb fully teched out. He was socially awkward, something I usually find appealing. But Jeffrey veered off into the bully territory whenever a situation became uncomfortable, which, when you're socially awkward, happens. This was at odds with the fact that he was a fervently practicing Buddhist. Several times in late nights to the bathroom or kitchen, I found him chanting with beads in hand, kneeling in front of a small altar on which he had composed a Buddha, incense, and some fruit. This is kind of part 2. And this is how new I was to New York. I landed a job interview at 60 Broad Street, which I knew was near Broadway. And since Broadway was only a few blocks away from my 3rd Avenue cross street, I left about 20 minutes beforehand thinking I would walk the whole way. When I reached Broadway and read the numbers on the buildings at 35th Street, I realized my mistake and I grabbed a cab. I was late for the interview, but I got the job working as a temp in a German bank called Dresdner. This was fortuitous, as that cab ride cost me nearly a week's grocery money supply. But now I was looking at the prospect of a paycheck, and giddy with my success, I called in one of those friends of friends chits and met with a couple of ex-roommates of an ex-boyfriend for a night on the town. Afterwards, caught in the dilemma of the late night hour and the realization it would be a while before I actually had a paycheck in hand, I debated about 30 seconds in the cold before getting into a cab and deciding groceries were overrated. And this is how I met Tracy. Cab driver, Studio 54 bouncer, actor, bullshitter. I'm not sure who started the conversation, but we very soon realized we had much in common. And while he was pulled up to a red light, I jumped out of the back seat and climbed up in front with him. Then he suggested, instead of taking me home, I go with him to a diner as his shift was almost up, and he was meeting a fellow cabbie bouncer for breakfast. It was 5 a.m. I said yes. Leon turned out to be a Hungarian New Yorker from the Bronx and a good foil to Tracy's larger-than-life persona. I learned more about New York from the two of them in those wee hours than I had from all the guidebooks and articles I researched in San Francisco. Later, taking me home for real this time, Tracy handed me a scrap of paper with his number on it, and I gave him mine. Inside the apartment, with daylight coming in through the windows, I tiptoed past sleeping Jeffrey, threw away the paper from the cab driver, and crawled into my bed with my makeup on. Jeffrey, as it turned out, had not been asleep. And when I rolled out of my bedroom in the early afternoon, he was sitting in the kitchen, smoking and smoldering. His mood lasted the entire uncomfortable weekend and was a reminder that while getting a job was crossed off my to-do list, I still had to think about moving. That night, after going directly into my bedroom after dinner, there was a jolting crash on my door, followed by the sickening sound of broken glass. Lots of it. When I opened the door, I found the remains of a Buddhist print with a glass and frame broken in a broad patch directly outside my doorway. The next morning, Jeffrey gave me 30 days to find someplace else to live. I began the task of packing up my belongings without a clue where they would end up next, but trusting in the roommates wanted section of the Village Voice in the New York Times. What other options did I have? There were some hopeful prospects and near hits, but always with some fatal flaws. And then it seemed I hit on the right ad: to share a 2-bedroom apartment in the West Village with a Polish artist and his friend. I made an apartment to go that night. It was freezing cold, and I still hadn't built up a proper winter wardrobe. Until then, I never knew the concept of a spring coat versus a winter coat. A friend in California who had lived in Connecticut assured me I could get by layering. This is a myth. And truly, no number of layers helps if you don't have the right footwear. I did not. The apartment was very cool, and I knew I could live there until I actually talked with the Polish artist. The friend, it turns out, was not really there most of the time. The artist was full of talk until he wasn't. And then he was this obnoxious, aggressive, groping nuisance. I was more bummed by losing the apartment than anything, but I hustled myself out of there and into the cold and now icy street. I could hear ice cracking behind me, and when I looked, there was the artist coming after me. I saw a cab and didn't bother to see if anyone was in it. I jumped in, literally peeling the artist from off my arm, slammed the door shut, and shouted to the driver, just like in the movies, "Move it!" And the driver did. And when we were a few blocks away and stopped at a red light, he turned around, and that was the second time I met Tracy. Holy shit! Do you know how many times this has happened since I've been driving a cab? Do you? Never. So, for the second time in his cab, I got out and climbed into the front seat. I poured my story out to him, and Tracy did a very convincing take charge impersonation. He would help me find a place. He had a friend working on Hill Street Blues in LA. He would sublet his apartment to me. It was in Tracy's building. This time, I kept the number he wrote out for me. Tensions were mounting on East 35th Street, and then things came to an abrupt, frightening head. I had been carrying on a long-distance relationship with my on-again, off-again boyfriend in San Francisco, and the last phone conversation we had was fraught with my roommate problems, plus all the hot and steamy subjects that go along with telephone sex. This, of course, was in the days long before cell phones, when we had good old answering machines. And as happens in all tragedies and comedies, a crucial mistake was made. This one resulted in our entire conversation being recorded on Jeffrey's answering machine. I had just discovered this and grabbed the tape from the machine when Jeffrey walked in the door. He looked from my panicked face to my hand clutching the tape, and he reacted. I told him the truth, or as much as seemed prudent, explaining the mistake and that a personal conversation had been inadvertently recorded. He demanded the tape, saying, rightfully, that it was his property. I assured him I was going out the door to buy him a new tape when he grabbed my hand and pushed me into the door. At this point, my memory fails. But somehow, in the next minute, I was out the door, and this was before, I was out the door and pleading with myself that I had my keys and money in my pocket. Since this was before I got all fancy and started carrying a purse with a wallet in it, it so happened that I had both. I didn't wait for the elevator, but tore down the stairs, around the block, into the nearest phone booth. Now was the big question. Did I have that little piece of paper with the phone number on it? Unbelievably, I did. Tracy formed a plan that was for me to return to the apartment after buying a new tape for the answering machine, get my bags ready to go, and wait for him to be done with his shift at 5 a.m. when we would quietly move my things downstairs where his cab would be parked. In the interim, I would stay in my room, and if Jeffrey did anything threatening, I would give him the name of one of Tracy's thug friends and tell Jeffrey this guy was a cop and a baby killer and was taking me under his personal protection. Apparently, the friend's name was recognizable to most New Yorkers. I was in my room quietly preparing for the dawn escape when the phone rang, and Jeffrey told me it was for me. There were only a few people who had the number, and Tracy was one. There was a change of plans. Tracy would be by in 15 minutes. I should be downstairs and waiting with my things. Think fast. I needed Jeffrey out of the apartment long enough for me to get my things out. It so happened that Jeffrey had an absolute addiction to cough drops, in particular Smith Brothers cherry flavored. He kept a stash in a bowl on the kitchen table. While he was in the bathroom, I emptied the box into my pocket, and when he came out, I casually mentioned to him it looked like he was out of his fix. While he went out and round to the neighborhood drugstore, I managed to get 3 suitcases and 2 boxes downstairs and into the lobby. Here is where doormen proved to be some of New York's greatest heroes. Willie, the slightly older one, was on duty, and I put all my trust in his professionally avuncular personality and my insane situation for his willingness to help me out. He not only met me on the stairs to take boxes, but he stashed them in an invisible closet in the lobby used for the staff to stow their personal belongings and, at least for that night, assisting furtive getaways. I could come back for them later on. I was coming down the stairs with my last box when I literally ran into Jeffrey on his way to the elevator. I'm not sure what gibberish I mumbled, but seeing the parked cab where Tracy was stuffing the 3rd suitcase into the trunk emboldened me, and I pushed way past Jeffrey and into the night. Goodbye, Jeffrey. So, without any alternative, I moved in that night with a cab driver I had met only twice to my second residence in New York City, which was 350 West 51st Street. Tracy lived up to his role as emergency host and set me up in the living room with a blanket and a pillow on the couch. And late that night, while he was back on his shift, picking up shivering fares in the February cold, I lay listening to the noises of the unfamiliar apartment and beyond, to those of my new neighborhood known as Hell's Kitchen. Sometime before sleep, I gradually picked up on a sound so utterly alien. I first tried to identify it without giving in to looking out the window for the answer. But it was so singular and strange, I had no point of reference. And eventually I looked. What I saw were the Central Park hansom cab horses at the end of their shift as they trotted down the block towards the stables on the west side. And the sound of their hooves was muffled and dreamy as they moved past my window in what was the most unforgettable snowfall I would ever experience.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm assuming you're done. That was a great ending, if nothing else.
I had to shoehorn the story into the theme, but I
I'm like, we think we lost Jackie. Where is she?
I'm here. I've had many technical difficulties, but I'm still with you.
Oh, good. Okay. Nancy, I don't know if we want to. Did you say, Jackie, that you had a fourth storyteller?
I do.
Oh,
So
good. All right.
we can take a small break and then he'll come on and be number 3, if that's okay.
Great. If you all want to unmute, we can talk about silver linings, stuff that happened this year that was not horrible.
I can go first. I met Lily White, not for the first time, but I met her years and years ago. But I met her really for the first time this year in 2020, and that's a gift.
Wait, Martha. I think we're taking a break. So
So I thought you
this is just sort of a break to socialize for 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, get a drink.
That was her silver lining.
that was my silver lining. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay, I just didn't know.
Her
Sorry.
silver lining was
want you to
meeting
start
you
looking
and
ahead.
cut her off.
Sorry. I didn't know with how many of you heard that. So yeah. So that I'm your silver lining. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, your silver
my
lining
God,
was
I'm
meeting
blushing.
you.
Lily this year, really meeting Lily this year. I had met her years and years ago because some of her best friends lived in our house upstairs. But this year I met her for good, and I'm very thankful for that. That's a gift. That's a silver lining in 2020.
I agree.
Yeah.
Meeting you. Anybody else have anything that was positive that happened this year? Unexpectedly.
Yeah, I didn't expire from COVID-19.
Oh, right. That's a really good accomplishment.
That was a good one. I had help. I had help from Lura Berry and from Martha Partridge, who they guided me through, like, some pretty rotten periods.
If it weren't for Martha, he'd be dead.
Yeah, pretty much so.
She does that bleach injection that I hear works really well.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Don't tell anybody, but it's not just
She's got this machine. She's got this machine in her basement that really injects like all kinds of stuff. It's great.
You know, my story, Phillips and my story of being evacuated from our house, which was a terrible thing. But then it turned out that we ended up in this resort in Terrytown because our insurance had to pay for
Probably much lower now.
and we ended up in this fabulous place for a month. So
That was your
Okay.
That's a silver lining.
if you're evacuated during a pandemic, go for a nice.
our cats have a silver lining because we're home all the time.
Oh yeah,
Pet them.
that's
They
lovely.
love
Yeah, they're getting spoiled, those cats.
Lily, did you have any silver lining this year?
I joined the sail club of Brooklyn, and it was pretty interesting. I've always wanted to join it, and I was thinking, how could I not lose my mind, being stuck here, and they were actually sailing, and people were wearing masks and stuff, and on the sailboats, but it was totally fun. It was a passion of mine when I was younger, and I sort of got back into it and realized how much I don't know. So this winter I'm memorizing all the buoys, all 34 buoys in the New York Harbor, and learning about navigation. So so I can pass my first level.
That's so cool.
Anybody else?
I think my silver lining is, like, I'm the kind of person that I'm a great friend if you're there in person, but otherwise I just don't keep in touch with people on the phone or online or whatever. And this year really forced me to do that, and it was a real blessing. Kept me sane.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
Is this Terrence?
Yeah, I lost
Yeah.
my speakers for a second.
Yeah, we hear you loud.
My
and clear.
daughter taught me how to skateboard.
Ooh.
That was pretty good for 2020. And
How old is your daughter, Terrence?
she's 10, going on 23 through Brooklynite.
Are you supposed to teach her?
And then I got to hike a lot this year. So I probably went on 15 to 20 hikes all throughout the Catskills and still in Pennsylvania. So that was
Nice.
Nice.
Yes.
I went to Germany for a week to stay with my mom and got stuck there and ended up staying 5 months.
what a shame.
What a shame. Not easy at first, but it turned out just to be a great chance to actually work remotely and spend a longer period of time with her and in Germany. So
Nice.
good.
I would say my silver lining this year is I took the opportunity to see family when I could. So I'm in South Carolina with the daughter right now, and I was trying to convince my other daughter to stay longer because she came earlier. And she reminded me we've already spent 7 weeks together this year, so maybe she won't stay.
So
But
you
I'm
can leave.
enjoying it.
Well, should we wrap this up and move on to our next storyteller? Who's the sub? Who's the mystery storyteller?
The sub, don't worry, he's like a first stringer, is my son-in-law. I just grab him and say, help me, and they take time.
Hey, Jackie, we can't hear you very well when you're off camera.
Oh no, sorry, hold on.
Get your mouth closer.
All right, I'm not even gonna comment on that. But anyway, so I'm gonna give you his bio. Wait, here I am. I'm here for real.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you his bio because I made him give me one last night. This is John Lofe. Tiffany Lofe is his wife, and she did a story for us last month. And let me see. Okay, so John is a full-time football coach. That's why we had to use different chairs because he needed a different accommodation than I. And how long have you and Tiffany been married? Put you on the spot, right?
10 years come September 3rd.
Very good, John. Okay, so and I first encountered John in Tiffany's high school chemistry class, and whatever, he was good at math, she was good at chemistry, and the rest is history. So he is a football coach at a private high school in Northwest Indiana, and he's coached at the high school and college level, all conference selections, regional selections, North All-Stars, and one All-American. And let me see if I can catch anything else. He says, because I said your bio has stuff about your wife and everything. So he said, of course it does. And then he sent it to me and it was in a different font. So he cherishes her and adores her. Good, John. They have 3 sons and a daughter. And she's the person he would rather come home to than anyone else in his life. All right, so this is John Lofe. Thank you very much. Tell us your story.
How's everybody doing today?
I think that it was accidentally muted.
Yeah, I accidentally muted you. I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
I didn't think you looked like a Tiffany.
Yeah, that is true. You never know, though. But how's
right.
everybody doing? Everybody all right? Good deal. Enjoying our nice Wednesday evening. So the theme from what Jackie is telling me is never give up. Yes?
No, I told you.
Yes, yes.
She's sitting over here driving in my ear. But, being a coach and, after so many years, I mean, it's pretty much the theme, fight to the end, strong to the finish, blah, 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 anything else that you could think of. But there is a game that really sticks out to me, and it was at the high school level. And it's, always been important. It's a, very strong reflection of, when things go wrong. I mean, when shit hits the fan, it hits the fan, and there's no easy way out, you got to claw, you got to fight inch by inch. If you want to do, when the breaks are against you, I mean, there's only one way to do it. It's just hard work and willpower. But so I coached at this school, East Chicago Central, and we made it to the playoffs. And we happened to draw our rival, which was West Side, a school that I hate. I hate the school of Gary. If it was on fire, I wouldn't piss it out. That's my feelings for it. So the prior year before, we played the same school, and it went to 3 overtimes, and we went through 3 quarterbacks. So we ended up finishing the game with a wide receiver who had to play quarterback. And naturally, we came up short in 3 overtimes. And, I mean, it was just a terrible feeling. So we get a second crack at these guys next year. So, EC Central is a huge basketball school, and, there was just a different atmosphere in the air because, it was football and everybody was really excited. So, it was, a great school day. Everybody's, hollering, getting hyped. The kids were actually being good. Nobody was sent to the office. So, and then right before we hit the bus, the head coach is a really, really good friend of mine. He's one of my best friends. He receives news that his mom had a heart attack and is in the hospital. And there's like 4 of us on the staff that we're really tight. And we're sitting there and we're, wondering how we're going to get through this. And, if he is going to go, if any of us are going to go, because we're all considered like literally like a band of brothers. And, his brother was on the phone with him, and, he was very emotional, as, you would expect. And, his mom had a couple of words. She could barely talk. She could barely, get it out. But she's like, you have one thing to do. She's like, go out and kick some ass. He's like, and call me when you beat West Side. So we're like, okay, it's like, now we got to get together, get ourselves together as coaches. The kids don't know anything yet. She's a really good team mom. Like any fundraiser, she's out there, she's hollering at, older folks, telling them to give money for the kids, all that good stuff. And, she's been a really huge part of any program that he's been with. And so we're, on the bus, the staff is still, can't look each other in the eyes. We're just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We actually even got a police escort to the game too, which was pretty exciting. Sticking in Gary's face, screw them, hate them, still hate them. So we're, we go to the field, it's, right before we hit the field, a little bit about us at that time. We were ranked in the top 10 in scoring in all high school football in Indiana. We averaged like 50 some odd points a game. Our defense, we had the most sacks in the state of Indiana. And we just really, got off the field when we needed to. And we're really fast. We had a lot of track guys, a lot of 2-sport, 3-sport athletes. So we get to this field and it's completely flooded. So imagine with a bunch of fast guys, why would they flood the field? Of course, to slow everybody down, because you can't really run as fast on mud as you would just normal grass or turf, which we had a turf field. So again, those bastards from Gary, they knew what they were doing, I'm telling you. So on top of it, playing in Gary was an adventure because of the officials. I don't know if they're hometown Gary people or if they just had a sense of pride. I mean, Gary is a rough neighborhood. It's a rough city. So maybe the refs were told, if you don't, get the calls where you can, you will be shot. And I'm not lying either. I mean, it's like that. There's shootouts at, Gary high school events. But, I knew one of the refs. The ref, believe it or not, the head ref, he was one of my friends in high school, his stepdad. So we were talking before the game, I'm like, okay, this feels a little bit different. So, there was just something in the air though. Something was, it wasn't like we were going to lose, but something in the air was like, all right, you're going to have to work for this one. And it's like, I can't really explain it. If you played any sort of athletics, you just know. It's like, you have it like it's just an instinct that, there's games that you're going to blow out your opponent. There's games where you're going to eke it out. And there's games where you're going to really, really, really do everything you can, but you're going to come up short. This was one of those type of, something was going to happen. So the game starts and everything goes wrong. We get the ball. We go 3 and out in our first series. We kick the ball, we punt it, and they return for a touchdown. So immediately, and they didn't have a kicker, so they scored on a 2-point conversion. So already it's 8-0. So everybody's getting down on ourselves. It's like, okay, just gotta wait. We can't pass block all of a sudden. We can't run block all of a sudden. We can't run the ball all of a sudden. And we're a top 10 team. So, we can't get to the quarterback, first down after first down. It's just, it's just a mess. So the quarterback, he decides to take one pretty much right up the gut, all the way to the end zone, like an 80-yard run, 2-point conversion. So we're down 16-0. And at a school like EC, it's an urban area as well. And, kids don't know how to handle adversity that well. Now, not to mention, the head coach's mom is in a hospital bed, and we're just sitting there, our chests are like all heavy. It's like we just all smoked 2 packs of cigarettes, and, we just really don't know what to, really what's going on right now. It's just like a blur. And, somehow, some way we have to get ourselves together and motivate these kids. And the kids, have to, execute their plays. So anyway, where was I going with this? So lo and behold, we get it together some. And our quarterback, who's a very, very talented person, he's playing at college right now. He's at a D2 school. He takes one on his own read, and he takes it to the house. And we kick the field goal, so it's 16-7. So it's not entirely too bad at this point. We go into the half, we're down, 16-7. It's like, hey, okay, here it is. We're just 1 score away. We got this. The coaches, are staying positive. Now, not yet. The head coach, he didn't leak this out to his players yet. He's not one of the guys that wants to be in the spotlight or wants to use, something like that, because, our kids, say for instance, if something, were to happen to where we would lose, be like, oh my God, we lost this game, and, Ma had a heart attack and she died because of me. That's what they would think, what I'm saying, over a game. So, he really wanted to keep Mom out of this at the time, and he wanted to, just stick with the basics. Not really the basics, motivate. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing wrong. This is what we're doing right. We got to do a little bit more of this. We got to have our protection. Protection's better. We got to get after the quarterback. Football. Mm-hmm. And, then some. So, everybody comes out, they're grinding their teeth like, yeah, we're going to do this. on the opening kick, they took it back for a touchdown as well. So right now we are down 22-7. And you got these kids, they all screaming at each other, yelling at each other. And, it just really wasn't, it wasn't a good situation. So like, okay, that's fine. It's fine. It's quick. It didn't take that much time off the clock. You guys are fine. So, we get the ball back and, we start putting together a drive. It's like, okay, here we go, run, pass, run, pass, run, pass, pass, pass. And we make it down the field and we score, get the 2-point conversion. It's like, okay, we're in business. All we got is, we just got to keep on going and, we're going to make this happen. We're going to win one for, school. We're going to win one for mom. It's going to be awesome. So, but the thing was, we couldn't really take that much time off the clock because we were down, another 2 scores. And, obviously, if, the time, nobody really loses the game, as they say, you just run out of time. So, feel free. So anyway, we're trying to contain them, but I mean, they, like us, they have really fast, characters. And believe it or not, 2 of their guys right now, as we speak, they were Division I athletes and they graduated and they're both in the NFL. There are 2 cousins on the squad. So that gives you a little taste of, how much speed and talent that they really had. So we ended up, yes, definitely they were very deadly. 1 plays for the Cowboys and 1 plays for the Texans. True story. The Johnsons. Yes. So anyway, we were able to get the kids to focus and, they came down to it. We were able to put together another short drive, but unfortunately we missed a 2-point conversion. So we were still down by 2 points with like 3 minutes to go. But then the defense pretty much played lights out. We stopped because they tried to run the clock out by running the ball. So we got a tackle, timeout, tackle, timeout, sack. No more timeouts left. So we pretty much got the ball back with 1.5 minutes. And somehow, some way, our quarterback, who's been just pretty much average all day, he, threw a fly route to the wide receiver and he caught the ball and never looked back. And he scored an 80-yard touchdown. But how crazy it was, there was still 1 minute left. And our kicker decides to kick the ball out of bounds. So the other team gets the ball at the 35-yard line. So he throws at their 35-yard line. So they got 65 to go. So then with these 2 athletes, he threw a dime. That means like he connected on a long pass. And he threw a 40-yard pass. So they are at our 25-yard line right now. So it's like, okay, we got about 20 seconds left. The ball's on the 25-yard line. This is what it's all about. Luckily, our front 4 was able to get enough pressure on the quarterback, and he threw an interception right in the end zone, and that was the game. And then after the game was over, none of us could talk. I thought I was going to have a stroke in the process. I mean, I was crying. The head coach was crying. And, everybody's like, what the hell is going on with you guys? This is, a big win. We're just like, ah. And then he finally spilled the beans. And then everybody, the whole team was in tears. And it was just really, it was just a situation. And, we told the kids, like exactly, screw Gary. But you know, that's the stuff that you have inside you all the time. But the thing is, you have to want it. There's got to be more than it. You know, I mean, it's, if there's a goal that you have to pursue it, you know, balls to the wall, and just nothing else. I mean, you got to get after it, and that's about it. That's all I got. But I hope this was a decent story for you. I was informed that I had to come up with a story about 23 hours ago, and I didn't think it would be appropriate telling stories about getting wasted in my teen years and trying to pick up women. I'm just...
All right. Well, thank you, John.
God, that's one for the storybooks, y'all.
Definitely.
Yeah, you had that one in the
Oh,
bank. You had that one in the
God.
bank.
And she's over here. She's blushing. That's the only reason I said it.
Jackie, in football terms, Jackie pulled an audible and got a Hail Mary.
Absolutely.
And we got one of the best stories, you know, of the evening so far. So it's amazing.
I thank you so very much for that. I was a little bit shooken up trying to tell it. I was about ready to start crying and shit. I was like, oh my God, here I am. I'm
That
crying.
that would have been the cherry on top. If you started crying,
I know, we would have all been crying.
oh,
Next
man.
time. Pull out the tears next
I
time.
almost did it. 2 minutes to go. I mean, 2 minutes in the start. I was about ready to start losing it. She looked at me. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like,
that's all we needed. That's all we needed was one lonesome tear. It amazes me that football coaches can memorize games like for years. That's like such an accurate depiction of a memorized game, because it's every play you'd memorized.
oh yeah, it was especially when you start getting down to the wire. I mean, you remember things like that. But you know, like I said, there's 2 players on that team that are in the NFL.
Texans and where else?
The Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Not
Both of them last name Johnson. Now my squad, on the other hand, I had one kid go Division I. He played at Valpo and then he gave it up. I have one kid right now who's at Tiffin University. He should have been a D1 kid. Do you know who Kwan Short is?
We're from Brooklyn, you know? So
we know nothing.
We diversify.
Well, Kwan Short, he is a defensive tackle. He plays for the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, okay. Quan Short, you know who that is, Sean? Defensive tackle for the Panthers? Yeah. We got some. I'm in North Carolina. They know who it is.
That's his. I coached his cousin. His cousin is the one that goes to Tiffin. He's an All-American. There's another kid that I coached. He is a national champion and an all-conference performer. He's continuing playing his ball as well. So out of those guys, there's 5 guys that made it to college, and there's probably a good 2 that could go all the way. So who knows? I mean, just got to see if, you know, how it shakes out for him, whatnot. But I mean, you think about it, you know, and I'll tell this story, you know, a couple years ago. I mean, a couple years later, be like, there were 4 guys that are in the NFL that played in this goddamn game. So
just don't get shot in Gary. Just don't get shot in Gary.
All right. Let's. I just want to move it on.
I'm sorry, Lily. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We have one more storyteller, and I just want to give a brief introduction to Martha Partridge, who.
I need to get out this way. I don't want to see how you go.
I'll mute. You guys can mute yourself.
I mean, I definitely
I lost the ability, but Martha has an MFA in dance from Sarah Lawrence, and taught and performed at very many dance festivals, Laban Institute in London, taught at Tisch School of the Arts, among many others. She also is a body worker, and I have been lucky enough to have been on the receiving end of that. She does Traeger work, which is, if you haven't had this done to you, it's pretty amazing. It's better than it's better than a touchdown, shall we say? Anyway, she works a lot with Parkinson's patients, and through using Traeger and other patients. She's also a musician, which is how I kind of knew her. She's played with her husband, Tigger Benford, doing percussion work, and is very accomplished. And now she has begun studying Balkan singing. So this is a real Renaissance woman here. Martha Partridge, I'm going to spotlight you.
Okay.
Hold on a second. There we go. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are.
So this is a story about our trip to Turkey. And actually the people, Rex and Laura, who are on this Zoom call, went to Turkey on this trip, as did Tigger and I and John Berger. So this story is about this amazing ballet piece that we call it The Gift That Keeps on Giving, because it's a ballet piece that was, it was created by Septime Weber, and the music is by Tigger Benford, my husband. And it started back, the trip to Turkey was 2012. This piece was created in 1996. And Septime called Tigger, who was working at Rutgers University at the time in the dance department. And Septime said, the piece, he said, I want you to compose a piece for me to a ballet piece that I have just created to a rock and roll score. It's called Fluctuating Hemlines. And Tigger said, great. And Septime said, well, I've created these 6 pieces to 6 pop tunes. So all the measures are set, all the phrasing is set, all the tempos are set. Do you think you can make a percussion score to this that has the same meters, has the same phrasing, has the same length, everything that's in the pop songs, can you recreate it with rock and roll percussion? And Tigger said, yeah, I'll do it. So they worked back and forth for a long time, and Tigger created the band, and the band was Rex Benincasa, Todd Eisler, who also has performed a lot with Lily and was at Open Source Gallery this summer when she was doing the quarantine jams, as were Rex and I and Tigger. So this is actually a quarantine jam band that we have going over to Turkey. So finally, we performed the piece the first time in Princeton, New Jersey, and it seems great. Everybody loved it. And the next thing we knew, Septime wanted us to perform it in New York. And also he sold it to a bunch of ballet companies across the United States. And we were able to perform with the Austin Ballet. They brought us down, and the Sacramento Ballet brought us over many, many times, maybe 5 or 6 times. I think we've performed about 60 to 80 times with this piece, about 22 different series of shows. And so, you know, this is why we call it the piece that keeps on giving. And so in Septime went to direct the Washington, DC Ballet. And he asked us to come down there to perform with that ballet. So we did that at the Kennedy Center. And then we also did it at another theater in Washington, DC, called what was it? Do you remember? The Alden Theater, right? And while we were performing at the Alden Theater, Septime comes over to us and he says, "Listen, you guys, we just got an offer from the International Ballet Festival in Bodrum, Turkey, and they'd like to have all of us come over this August and perform in their festival." So we were like, "Great, this sounds great." So all summer long, Tigger is coordinating with Septime and with Arthur, the manager down at the ballet in Washington, DC. And, you know, he's giving him the drawings and the specs and what we need for microphones and stands. And this communication goes from Tigger to Washington, DC, to Ankara, to Bodrum, and then back again. And this happens, you know, it takes about 2 weeks to get each communication, and then 2 more weeks to get it back. And it became clear after several of these back and forths that there was no way we could rent any percussion instruments in Bodrum. Nobody was answering us about where can we get a drum set, where can we get congas, where can we get bongos, where can we get a keyboard, djembe, because we don't want to carry all that stuff over in crates to Bodrum, right? It's way too much stuff. Usually it's very easy to rent those things in a city, but we couldn't get any feedback. So Arthur, who's the manager, says to us, listen, we don't know what to do. We don't know how we're going to get these instruments in Turkey. Can you guys, is there anything you can think of? And Rex says, I got a Facebook friend, Hakan. He's in Istanbul. He runs a drum shop. I'm going to ask him. So Rex gets on the Facebook and he talks to Hakan, and Hakan says, yeah, sure. I got those. I got all that stuff. And I can get a driver to drive it down to Bodrum. It'll take 10 or 12 hours in a truck. And what are we going to do? We say to Arthur, this is crazy, but this is what we got to do, right? So Arthur said, yes, he gives him $500, another $500 when we get the instruments. So we feel like that's set. Okay, one emergency taken care of. So Tigger and I are up on vacation in Maine. And as we're driving back, we're driving back, we're about to really get in gear for traveling. I think it's about a week away from when we leave. And we get a phone call from Todd Eisler. And he says, my dad is dying. I can't go on this tour. We have to find somebody else. And we were, again, it's like, oh my God, of course he has to go spend that time with his dad. Of course he does. So Todd says, I've done a little research. I'm trying to get Jamie Haddad to go. Now, Jamie Haddad is the one who invented the hajini, which is one of the instruments that Todd was playing in this piece. And Jamie Haddad also could play the kanjira, which was another instrument Todd was playing. And then he was also a drum set player. He's pretty famous though, so he couldn't go. We decided to give up on the idea of finding anybody who could play a kanjira, which is from South India, the hajini, which is basically 2 udu drums that Jamie Haddad invented, that Todd plays, and a drum set player. That doesn't really happen very often. So we decided to get a drum set player, and Rex and Tigger would fill in Todd's part with other instruments. So we were thinking, okay, we have a few days left. What drum set player that could play Todd's parts? Which is, Todd, if you heard him at Open Source Gallery this summer, you would know Todd's drum set playing is something that is quite unique. And he made up a lot of the drum parts in the piece. So Rex says, okay, how about John Berger? He was a substitute for In the Heights. He can really play the drum set. He could do this. So Rex calls him, sure enough, he can take off in 5 days or whatever it was. So we rehearse in our basement. We figure out how Rex and Tigger can take over the parts. One thing that they have to do is they both have to play the rick, which is a Middle Eastern drum. And I have to hand it from Tigger to Rex and back to Tigger again. That's only important because of another part in the story. So we get it all together. We get all our instruments. They get into the crates. They get shipped over. And we go through Istanbul and then down to Bodrum. When we get to Bodrum, we find out that in fact there is a store down there that can rent all the drums that we need. So Rex quickly calls his friend and says, we don't need your driver. Hopefully they haven't started yet from Istanbul. We don't need them. We're going to rent drums here. So we all had a fantastic evening with dinner, and it's a 5-star hotel. Modern dance, which is what all of us have worked in before. You never stay in a 5-star hotel with modern dance. This is a ballet company, the International Ballet Festival. So we were treated really well. The next morning, we get a knock on our door from John Berger, and he says, Tigger, you got to get up. They want you down at the drum shop in the mall. You got to get up. So Tigger goes, okay, gets up. Goes out. There's a van waiting for him down at the end of down on the street next to the hotel. The driver doesn't speak Turkish, and he speaks Turkish. Tigger doesn't speak Turkish, so they don't communicate. Tigger understands he's going to take him to a mall, and somewhere in this mall there's going to be a drum shop, and somehow people are going to be there, and they're all going to decide and carry the drums back to the theater. So he gets to the mall and he looks on the mall, contents of the mall, and
dropped me off at the mall.
yeah, and then Tigger goes in and he finds that there are 2 music shops. So one music shop has all classical instruments. He knows that's not the one. He goes to another music shop and he finds out that that's the one. There's percussion instruments. There's keyboards. He's guitar. Yeah, it's just a regular shop that rents instruments. So Tigger says, okay, I'm Tigger Benford and I'm with the Washington Ballet and I hear that you're going to rent us these instruments. And they've never heard of him. And they've never heard of the Washington Ballet. I don't know what he's talking about. So he's starving, jet lagged. He doesn't even know how he's going to get back to the hotel. So he walks to the food court, and there in the food court is Arthur and 2 other guys waiting for him. And they say, wow, we've been waiting for so long. Where have you been? So anyway, it all works out. They go into the instrument shop, they rent the right instruments, they bring them up on the stage. And there we are looking at the mall, and there's no drum set. And the technical director of the festival says, we have a drum set underneath the stage. So we pull it out. There's no head on it. That's okay. John Burgers, that's okay. I don't need a head in the drum set, but I do need cymbals and I do need pedals, you know. So we have to go back. They're brought finally that afternoon as well. So we do a nice kind of sound check. The guy never got any of our specs, never got any of our drawings, didn't know how many mics, didn't know where to put them, didn't know anything. Luckily, he was a really nice guy. In these situations, a really nice technical sound guy helps a lot because everyone's panicking. So finally we get it all set up and the dancers are doing their rehearsal on stage. We're doing kind of a little rehearsal on the apron, which is where all our instruments are. And we hear this call to prayer from the mosque next door and everything stops. And this gorgeous voice comes out of loudspeakers. It's right next to this beautiful amphitheater that we're in, this 2,000 seat amphitheater. And the back of the amphitheater is a castle that was built in the 1100s. So there we are, just understanding all of history and understanding the different cultures that are coming together in this amphitheater and in this festival. It was nice to pause and just think about that while we continued to work. So the next day, we did our technical rehearsal, and we were about to do the show. And the dancers, we put all of our instruments were on stage. We didn't have to set them up at all during the second half. They were already there. So the first half went on, everything went great. No problems. Technical stuff was great. The sound was great. The lights were great. So we came on during intermission to tune our drums and to shift stuff around, microphones, whatever we needed. And so Rex has, one of the things that he plays is a didgeridoo, which is an long Australian instrument that you blow into and makes very low sound. You probably know what it sounds like. So usually when Rex warms up on this instrument, he does it pretty low because, you know, it's pretty loud instrument. So he's doing his low warm up. I'm doing a little warming up on my cowbells. Tigger's got problems with tuning his conga drums. He's got this wrench that doesn't seem to fit. John is on the drum set and he's very quietly, lightly doing some stuff. So all of a sudden, a guy in full traditional Muslim garb jumps up on the stage from the audience and he starts yelling in Turkish. We assume it's Turkish. He yells and he yells and he rants and he rants. And the audience becomes very quiet. And then there's a woman in the audience that starts ranting and shouting back at him. And this goes on, and Rex is just blowing through his didge, and John's quietly on his drums, and I'm just kind of quiet. I really don't know what's gonna happen. And Tigger's over there still working with this wrench. He's got the wrong wrench. So he goes across the stage, he goes up to the dressing room, gets a new wrench, comes back down and continues his tuning. And this guy is ranting right in the front of the stage. So finally, of course, what happens is 5 policemen come and drag him off. And by this time, you know, this is about 10 minutes in, dragging him off to the backstage. And the audience doesn't seem to be that disturbed. We're all kind of we're very confused. So then the manager comes out and says to us, listen, we got some problems. The dancers are really freaked out and they don't, they're having problems. They're having problems going on. So just wait. We're going to calm them down. Just wait. So we wait and we wait and we wait. And the audience waits and it waits and it waits. And we wait and we wait and we wait. Everybody's waiting. The manager comes along and says, everything's almost okay. We have 2 women who are just freaking out. They don't want to go on. Just give us a little more time. So we need a little more time. He goes back and we wait again. A couple more minutes. We're waiting. We're waiting. And the audience starts rhythmically clapping. They want the show to go on. They're concerned. They don't think the show is going to go on. They don't know what's happening, but they're rhythmically clapping, egging us to start playing. So the manager comes on. He says, listen, I don't know. I think just one dancer. She's just about ready. She's just about ready. Hold on. So they go back. So there we are sitting again. He comes back out again. She's not ready. You guys have got to play something. So we're like, what are we going to play? What are we going to play? We can't play a piece from the piece, and we certainly haven't prepared any pieces. So Tigger says, look, let's just improvise. So we're about to start improvising when the manager comes back on. He says, okay, she's ready. We can do this. So the piece starts, and it's fine. The piece sounds great. The dancers are doing great. Tigger hands me the Rick during that section. I hand it to Rex. We all keep playing. Rex gets finished. He hands me the Rick. I hand it over here. I put it on Tigger's conga drum, and Tigger's elbow bumps into the Rick, and it rolls across the stage. Luckily, it rolls down the side of the stage, down towards the sound system. And the music is so loud at that point that I don't think anybody heard it. I just, as soon as I could, I went and I got it and I put it back on the conga drum. And I thought, okay, if that's the worst thing that happens, that's okay. We finish the piece and we go right to our translators and we go, what was that about? What did he say? Our translators were so embarrassed. They would not tell us what the guy said. And we thought, oh my God, this must be really terrible what he said. But she was from the Cultural Council in Ankara. She wanted her American artists to have a great time and to love Turkey and to love performing in Turkey. And this thing had happened, a really big blight on their reputation, right? So she was really embarrassed, didn't want to tell us what happened, was hoping no one else would tell us what happened. We went home, and the next morning we woke up and Rex, I think it was Rex, had gotten the concierge to tell us what was in the newspaper article that had been written about what had happened. And the concierge told us that the guy, apparently, this is a guy that does this all the time with performances and public events. He loves to get up and rant, and then police just surround him and they take him off. He goes to jail for a few days or in a holding cell for a couple hours, whatever. This is his thing. And then he gets written up in the newspapers. This is what he does. So what he was talking about, he's ranting about, Americans should not be invited to this festival. This is a European and Asian festival. What are the Americans doing here? We hate America. America is a sinful, horrible place. And also men and women should never be on the stage together. That is a sin. That is not something God would ever want. And please get them off. So, interesting, right? Very interesting. And our translators, I think we eventually told them that we knew what was going on, and they just apologized and said, we just have these people, everybody pretty much, we live in harmony here. There's some very traditional people here, but there are people like us who are artists who want to see artists from other parts of the world. And sometimes these things happen. So the next day was fine. The next night we were hitting at 10, the way we always do. The way we did in Turkey. And because there's a huge security element now, all of the audience members are being checked. Their purses are being checked. Their bags are being checked. They're being asked questions. And so the show starts at 11 or 11:30. And then we go on. We have a perfectly fine show. It's once again, it's full, 2,000 people. And we finish, everything's fine, and we go off onto a party boat. We take this party boat out in the middle, of the sea. It's the Aegean Sea, and everybody drinks and they dance and they have foam poured all over them, and we go back and everything's fine. So we pack up and we go back to Istanbul. We spend about 4 days in Istanbul, and we buy some drums and we eat some great food and we see some dancers, some dervishes. And then we come back to New York. And that's it. That's the story. How long was it? I don't even know.
Sure.
Perfect length. Perfect length.
It was.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
That was great.
Yay, Martha. Yay.
Yay.
I guess this is about don't give up. Yeah. So
And that's a good thing about their themes because they could fit anything.
and
I'm absolutely going to use the expression Rex was just blowing through his ditch.
Yeah, it's just blowing through the ditch.
No, that was very funny part. That was a very funny part.
I have to ask Laura, what it was like from the audience, because she was sitting in the audience.
Well, we were very tense because I could tell from the audience members around me that the guy was like, he was this major, well-known activist, and he was yelling and, really emphatic, and people were like, oh, what's going to happen? And it was kind of tense, but everybody was trying to be very, very calm and not panic. But nothing happened after that because I didn't know what was going on. But this guy was ranting and raving. He was on it. And you guys are like calm, cool, collected. You guys couldn't care less what he was about, and you're just, Rex is just
He was just another dude on the subway, just talking to the city,
Martha, next time you play there, just tell them you're from Canada and you're smooth sailing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully there will be a next time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got to say that in the audience, the woman who was shouting back at him was the ambassador's wife. She spoke Turkish. American ambassador. They were both at the show. And
what was she saying?
I guess she was saying, shut up and get the heck out of here. That's what she was saying. Because the translators later, when they spoke to us about that, they figured that he probably decided to come to this venue that night because of the fact that she was there and the ambassador to America. They were both American ambassadors that wanted to make sure they heard his message.
He didn't know what he was up against.
Wow. Well, that was a great story.
You.
I don't want to give hope that we'll be able to trip and we'll be able to play music and other.
I know.
And be an audience. Just be an audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank all of you for sticking it out. Nancy, Martha, Shariff, and John. It's John, right? I kept seeing John and it was saying Tiffany. So I was like, which is it? And my name is Monica, and
there we go.
Jackie, my co-host, thank you for pulling what do you call it? A Hail Mary.
A Hail Mary.
Audible.
I don't know what those things mean. Isn't that company that people read to you?
Not in this circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm still working on my football terminology.
Yeah.
Be a good mother-in-law.
Yeah, the stories were fantastic tonight. Everybody was it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lily.
Everyone next year.
Monica. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
What is it? What's January what?
Well, I was actually gonna see if we could do it on Thursday in January, only because I would be not around on the Friday.
Fine with me. See you guys at last Thursday in January.
The 28th. The
28th, right?
28th of January.
Perfect. And then I think if you guys want to, I think there's doing some Church of Monica stuff maybe this Sunday, maybe the following Sunday. So check on the opensitegallery.org website. And there's hyphens between the open and the source and the gallery. And you can check out some of those things. They're really fun. You know, it's kind of like we can get all people from all around the world now to do these personalities.
And storytellers, if you want to see your stories, we've been reposting them a couple weeks after they go up. So we'll have a link for that.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you to everyone. As you
Listen
can
to
see I don't know if you saw this door opening behind me. I only have a short shelf life. There's somebody else, including the dog. So I thank you for joining us this evening and look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Good night. Great show tonight,
Thank
you
you.
guys. It was wonderful.
All right.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Pete.
Thanks for the invite. It was great. Great stories. And I think it's only my second time on Zoom,
All right.
but it was cool. You know, I thought it would be real tough, but the stories kept me captivated.
Cool.
And the
Agreed.
comments, some of the comments, I haven't yet perfected the chat response,
Yeah.
but some of them were pretty funny. Some of the chats, and thanks for the stories. Thanks for the invite. And now that I must get up at 4 in the morning, I must hit the hay.
All
Me
right.
too. Me too.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Bye,
All
guys.
right. Thank
Good
you.
night, guys.
Bye,
Thanks
all.
again.
Bye.
Bye.